All right, so Kwani, it is great to have you as the first guest on Not For Too Long for Mr. Vincent. It's been a long time since I've seen you, I feel like. How have you been?
I've been doing well. You're right. I've heard your voice on Clubhouse, but other
Yep.
than that, I haven't really been seeing as many people involved.
I'm sure you haven't been seeing a lot of people, considering the times that we're living in. It's crazy. Think about it. It's been a little bit over a year since we've been in this pandemic, right?
Yeah, a little bit more. Because March 11th, I'll never forget that date. That's when the NBA shut down. So we're in
Yeah.
April now. It's been a month, a year and a month almost.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Just think like how many people's lives have been altered
Mhm.
for the foreseeable future or some forever. So I wanted to get your take on how has it been for you being a multimedia journalist, navigating in that realm while still in the midst of the pandemic?
It was definitely hard at the beginning, especially because not only did I leave sports, which when I was taking the news job, it felt like the most dramatic decision of my life to leave something that I had loved so much for an opportunity that was amazing, but I still was a little bit unsure, do I really want to make this leap? And it worked out because after I left sports, it turned out the whole world really got shut down and no one was going to be able to watch sports anyway. It's kind of like, it sounds like a terrible thing. It's like, well, no one else can do it, so I don't feel as bad. But that was just the reality of the situation when we had to shut down last year. But also moving to the news side, it was definitely a big opportunity for me to grow outside of just my love of sports, just growing on camera and growing with the innovation that I've had to have over the last year. And to your point, I think the biggest transition too was creating content during a pandemic. And when I started the role, I knew that I had told them I wanted to do a lot of on-camera stuff, really just grow in the multimedia aspect. But I didn't really know what that meant when I started. And then again, being shut down, I'm assuming, let's say pre-pandemic, if the goal was to do sit-down interviews or to have a show, maybe use one of our studios, because NBC just recently built a beautiful multimedia center in Massachusetts. So I was like, oh my God, the opportunities are endless in this place that we have. But then obviously getting shut down, it's like, all right, I'm working from home. I'm in my apartment every day. I'm seeing the same walls every single day. But being able to use Instagram at first for a series that I do called 10 Questions, and that evolving into something that's not even just on Instagram anymore. It's on Roku, it's on YouTube, it's on all different types of platforms. I surprised myself, but also I'm grateful because I had the people around me to really push me with those opportunities and help me think of ways to still create good content despite the barriers that we have had.
That's real. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've seen like since this pandemic, a lot of like content creators' birth that they made the most out of a horrific situation, and it's found love and love that they probably never knew existed, but just build a solid foundation and have propelled since the pandemic transpired. Um, I was gonna say to you as well. Now you talked about content. One thing about you, I can admit, you are amazing at social media.
Thank you.
Did you hear that a lot?
Yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, I think it's because most of it is because it's my job, and I think working in a social media space on a regular basis, you tend to see what works, what doesn't work. I will admit, over the last few years, I've gotten to a point where as much as I put out on social media, and I know it is not as important, but it is an important aspect of working in media, I think, overall. I've tried to scale back just because I don't want to overextend myself. And I realize that everyone needs to take a break from social media, whether you do it for a living or you're just having an Instagram account for fun. I've been trying to find that balance. It has not been perfect. It hasn't been easy, but as much as I may enjoy it, I always know that every once in a while, it's good to take a break from anything really, and just step back and make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because that's the most important thing.
Amen to that. So I wanted to get your take on what do you think is the most effective social media tool for one to build their brand? I mean, I would think it's Facebook, but I could be wrong. So I want to get your take on that.
So you mean websites, what social media platform?
Yes.
I honestly wouldn't pick one over the other. And that's because I've noticed for specific brands, specific people, different platforms work. So for example, where I work, NBC Boston, Facebook, you mentioned, is a really good driver for traffic to the website because they've had a following on Facebook for years. My personal Facebook is dead. I'll post something today, it will get maybe 10 likes, and one of them is going to be my mom. So the interaction for me versus the brand that I work for is completely different. And then you go to Twitter, you go to Instagram, LinkedIn, I mentioned Clubhouse. There's so many apps nowadays. And I've noticed that with each app, I've gotten different things out of it. For Twitter, I'm getting a lot of my information and tweeting a lot of news articles and reading a lot of news articles. But Instagram is a lot of life updates and photos of people that you know and people that you love. And LinkedIn is obviously more professional, and you're just seeing what updates people got with when it comes to their jobs. And then Clubhouse is just a chance to talk to people. There is not necessarily a standard of what you're supposed to do with Clubhouse just yet, but you get to listen to a lot of information. So all that being said, I wouldn't specifically pick a platform. I would say based on what you're looking to do, whether it's for your career or your personal life, you have to decide what app works best for you. Because again, I've noticed for me, Twitter and Instagram have been the most consistent apps that I've used. But I also know that with TikTok, I dabbled in it over like the end of last year. And I realized that it is easy to gain a strong following there, but you have to be very consistent and create content for that platform on a regular basis, which I haven't had time to do. So with that being said, if I was dedicated to TikTok, I probably would have a stronger following there as well. So that was a long answer, but literally it's not even to be political. I think if you have a goal that you have in mind when it comes to social media, look at the platforms and see which one is more aligned with whatever. If you're trying to be an Instagram model, clearly Instagram model, Instagram is where you go. But if you're trying to be a reporter, Twitter might be the place you start and try to build a following there. So it really does vary.
You make a good point. I felt like Twitter is like the ideal social media tool for a journalist. Right. Because, you just like, it's live updates, it's on the feed, you're typing. Right. So that seems like more ideal. Is there anyone that you like personally, like your favorite social media platform?
No, I wouldn't say that. I definitely use Twitter and Instagram more often, but I still use Facebook for work. I still dabble with TikTok. If anything, I watch a lot of TikToks and learn a lot from that app. Clubhouse, I listen to a lot of people speaking, and there's a lot of information on that app as well. So I wouldn't say I have a preference, but I try to make sure I dip my toes in all of them. So I'm just kind of aware of what's going on.
Okay. Now, you did talk about earlier NBC, 10 Questions with NBC Boston, right? How long has that been out? Still in the infancy stages?
Still in the what?
Infancy stage? Like a few months has been going on?
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, I got you. That series has been out, I believe, since March of last year. I can't remember the exact date, to be honest, but I think I mentioned it started on Instagram just as an Instagram live thing. And so people couldn't really see the video elsewhere for the most part, unless I would screen record it and post it somewhere else. And then we transitioned so that it started on Facebook Live. Like you mentioned, we have a stronger following there, but also that video, the format of that video is a little more accessible to other platforms. So that Facebook Live / everywhere else model has been around, I think maybe earlier this year in January, when we started to launch it so that people could find it on more platforms.
Oh, okay. So how has that been like? Because like I know you said like you're trying to get more comfortable being on camera. So has it been like valuable to use thus far?
Absolutely. Starting on Instagram was the best thing that could have happened because it gave me that live television simulation, even though it's not TV, but it's giving you the experience of having to talk to someone you've never met on a live platform, but also being able to think on your toes. And yes, maybe I would have questions lined up, but someone says something really good, I'm not going to just disregard maybe a point that they make and not ask a good follow-up. Hopefully, I mean, if I'm, as I'm getting these reps, I'm realizing that versus just asking the next question I had on my list when a good follow-up would have been the perfect opportunity to really get a good story. So it's helped me in that way overall. And I think as it's evolved again to the different platforms, it's helped me realize how to market it. How are you posting clips of it on Instagram versus on Twitter? And maybe you can put longer clips on Facebook and some on LinkedIn. It's definitely made me more well-rounded when it comes to learning about how I am on camera, but also learning about how to get people's attention. And another part that I really appreciate is, the part of booking. Like I've been able to book all of my guests, and it's hard. I didn't realize how hard it was to get in contact with anyone, really. Even though we're in a social media era, there's some people,
Exactly.
obviously, if you're more high profile than someone else, it's going to be a little bit harder to get you on the show. But that's been a fulfilling part of the experience as well, because I've been able to use my network and realize that sometimes you have to ask for things. And I hate asking people for stuff, but putting myself out there.
You ain't the only one.
Right, exactly. I know a lot of people have that same issue. So being able to put myself out there and say, hey, we have this series, would you be willing to be on it? It was a challenge at first, but now I'm a little more comfortable at breaking out of that shell.
Have you gotten more yeses than no so far?
Yeah, I actually have. And not to sound braggy, but one of the bigger guests that we've had was Ayanna Pressley, a congresswoman. And I remember and it's funny because I have had a bunch of different kinds of guests on so far in different industries. And one thing that I realized from doing that is that everyone's a big deal in their own world. So I had Bia on. She's a local Boston artist. I remember bringing her name up at the meeting with my coworkers, and nobody knew who she was. But I knew that the people that follow her and follow her music are going to think that's a big deal. And the same went with Ayanna Pressley. Actually, it was different with Ayanna Pressley because when I bring her up, obviously everyone in the news station follows politics and knows who she is. But that helped me, I think, be a little more level-headed with the guests that I have, because, again, each person's a big deal in their own world, and I want to treat them accordingly. And I feel as though if I'm able to give someone a platform versus whether they're a politician or they're an everyday person working at your local Starbucks, no matter what it is, I want to make sure that I'm giving them a platform to tell their story, irregardless of where they come from. Even though I know people will maybe be a little more drawn to the names that they're familiar with, but I think everyone has a story, and I think that's been a really good chance for me to highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like you said, everybody has like their own following. So your platform is perfect because people are getting like who are not familiar with an individual. They get to learn about them, and then they already have this following of their own. So they're going to tune in, obviously, and then you're going to benefit either way.
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
That's dope. All right. So one of the things that I've did during the pandemic, I was watching The Office. I know that you're a big fan of the show.
I am.
You told me about it before. A lot of people talked about it. I never watched it before, but I know at the start of the new year, let me start watching the show. It might be the funniest show I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah.
What character do you think you relate to the most on that show, and why?
That's a tricky one. Because I love all of the characters on this show. I would say this is not I probably have a better answer. I'll probably think of this later and be like, oh my God, this character is better. But I would say Jim, because I love his sarcastic attitude a lot of times. He definitely knows how to do his job well and really work in that office space. But he still does him. He pulls his pranks on Dwight. He still stays true to who he is. So I really do like his personality. I don't know if I can necessarily say I'm just like him, but I can relate to the way that he acts because I love a good joke. I love a good dad joke every once in a while. So, to balance that work life, literally it's kind of like the epitome of having the work life balance with him, where he does his job again, but he makes sure to be lighthearted as much as he can. I appreciate him for that.
Yeah, I would go with Jim myself too, just for the simple fact that his reaction to what he sees in the office.
Yes.
That'll be me. That's me every day. Like,
just silently staring. Right.
Pre-pandemic. That's me every day. All right. So last question I have for you. If you can give any words of encouragement to aspiring multimedia journalists, what would they be?
I would say be you. And I'm sure this is something that everyone has said, but I really do stand by that, because I was talking to a college kid earlier, and I remember he asked what advice I'd give. And I realized that when I had started in the industry, I felt as though I had to be someone that I wasn't. I felt as though I wasn't the prototype of what a woman in sports looks like or what a Black person in sports should be. There were so many standards that I was trying to live up to that I forgot that being myself was going to be cool enough, and that at the end of the day, I was going to bring a unique voice and a unique perspective to whatever situation that I'm in. And I've noticed that over the years that every newsroom that I'm in, every office that I work with or work in, I'm bringing a different perspective, and I'm bringing a different work ethic, and I'm bringing a whole set of experiences that other people that I work with may not have. And that's not just because I'm a Black woman, it's just because I grew up in a different area or I went to a different school. Like there, people often look at the external and they're just like, oh, you're Black, you're bringing diversity. But diversity is more than just that. For me, diversity is diversity of thought and experience. And for me to bring something to the table that someone else doesn't, no matter what I look like, I think is very valuable to anywhere that we work. And if more places were willing to look at that and understand that diversity is more than just the numbers, because a lot of places will hire just because, oh, well, we need a Black quota. Yes, you do. Yes, you are definitely lacking in that area, but also don't just hire Black people to say you have someone on your roster versus being very intentional about why you're hiring them and making sure that the place you hire them into is inclusive of them and their experiences. So that long story short, be yourself, be true to who you are, and realize that the right workplace, whether you're in media or not, is going to accept you for who you are and help you grow and to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, and I think that that holds true even more so nowadays with the advent of technology and social media, how you can literally build your platform, kind of like how you did with 10 Questions with NBC Boston. You said it started on IG Live and now it's on Roku and other places to find it too as well. So yes, I think that can apply to everyday life for any aspiring journalist. That they don't have to wait for that opportunity; they can create it right then and there.
Yeah, I love that. So true.
Well, Kwani, rather, that is it. This is in the books. First episode.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. You have a great day and keep doing amazing things and creating dope content.
I appreciate that. You too.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.